So today we're going to be looking at the Sixth War of the Sicilian Wars by the great Invicta. And yeah, let's see how this one goes now that Dionysius is dead. And yeah, like who's gonna be running things now on both sides, I wonder.
A small Greek force of 10,000 men crests a hill to overlook a plain shrouded in fog. As the mists part, it reveals a vast Carthaginian army led by none other than the Sacred Band. But rather than retreat, their commander orders a charge. This man was Timoleon, and he was about to make history at the Battle of Cramasus.
The Sacred Band? The only Sacred Band I know of is the Sacred Band of Thebes. So did the Carthaginians hire the Thebans? Or is this a different Sacred Band that I'm just not aware of? Huh.
During his 38-year reign, Dionysius of Syracuse had dictated the geopolitical agenda of Sicily with his ambitious plans. His death therefore created a power vacuum which the factions of the island were keen to exploit. For a time, his son, Dionysius II, was able to maintain some semblance of control thanks to the guiding influence of his uncle, Dion. But when the steward to the throne invited Plato to help reform the government, Dionysius ultimately joined his rivals and banished his uncle. What followed would be a struggle of political and armed conflict between the two men, which lasted nearly a decade. All of this bickering did little to improve the status of Syracuse, as
I'm sorry. I was not expecting Plato of all people to show up, but wow. That's interesting. Sorry, I was caught off guard by Plato's arrival right here.
many of its former subjects broke away and came under the control of their own regional tyrants. During this time, many Syracusans were fed up with the strife which was tearing apart their city. A great number of them therefore joined Hycetus, the Syracusan-born tyrant of Leontini, in his bid to oust Dionysius. Others, meanwhile, appealed to their mother city of Corinth for help. However, its leaders were wary of lending aid, considering the seemingly hopeless task of establishing a stable government in tyrannical, fractious, insecure, and turbulent Syracuse.
Fair.
And yet one nobleman, Timoleon, would accept this mission. Together with around 1,000 mercenaries aboard 7 ships, he set sail for Sicily. In 344 BC, he evaded efforts to block his arrival and landed near Tauromenium, where he was met by local supporters. This force now advanced upon nearby Adranum. When Hycetus moved to intercept them with 5,000 men, the outnumbered Corinthian force in turn surprised and defeated them in an evening attack. This unexpected reversal caused other Greeks of Sicily to now join Timoleon and even prompted Corinth to send reinforcements. The Carthaginians, meanwhile, grew alarmed at this escalating situation. Historians report that as a result, they deployed a fleet and army to the island under the command of Mago, which boasted around 150 ships and 50,000 men. Supposedly, they had already been in secret negotiations with Hycetus to support him indirectly. Now, however, an increasingly desperate Hycetus called for direct intervention. Diodorus and Plutarch offer slightly differing accounts of what happened next. Apparently, the Carthaginians established a blockade around eastern Sicily to deny Corinthian reinforcements and to choke out the remaining forces of Dionysius still besieged within the island fortress of Syracuse. As a counter, Dionysius offered his citadel to the Corinthians on condition that he be granted a comfortable exile in Greece. When this was accepted, Timoleon slipped a garrison to take charge of the Ortygia, whilst leading his main army to take the outskirts of the city. In response, the Carthaginians reportedly moved in their own troops to occupy key areas of Syracuse. If this story is to be believed, then its districts were now being divided up between 3 to 4 separate factions. It's hard to imagine.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Just a complete, mess. Just everyone's all around. But that actually kind of creates an interesting thing. Like I said, I do know of the... Well, I'll save that for later. But yeah, this is an interesting situation in Syracuse.
A more chaotic situation. We're told that for a time, Hycetus and Mago led joint efforts against their rivals, but failed to dislodge them. Fearing betrayal, and perhaps believing the entire situation was foobar, Mago apparently decided to withdraw his forces entirely. Such a move was not unreasonable. After all, his predecessor Himilco had become trapped in a similar situation whilst besieging Syracuse and only barely escaped with his life and a fraction of his army. Yet while this withdrawal saved Carthage, it effectively handed control of Syracuse to Timoleon, who now swept in with his army. His first move was to actually restore the democratic government of Syracuse, symbolically destroying the tyrant's citadel and replacing it with the court of justice. Plutarch mentions that he next sought to bring fresh waves of immigrants from across the Greek world to replenish the population which had been ravaged by disease and war. Thus feeling rejuvenated and having settled affairs in the city, Timoleon then sought to depose the other local tyrants, including Hycetus, who had managed to slip away to his city of Leontini.
Alright, so yeah, Timoleon's an interesting fellow, ain't he? Dude's literally restoring democracy, getting rid of those tyrants, restoring democracy, and now he seems on a quest to establish more democracy. Holy crap. Interesting guy. And yeah, Carthage just bailed. Honestly, I can't even blame them fully. Like, if the situation was that bad, just like, well, live to fight another day, right? Well, why lose people in a situation if you're confident you are going to lose? Still though, it's not a good look, but like, we've seen Carthage just straight up abandon sieges and stuff if things aren't going well, so there has been a precedent for that.
He apparently grew so confident that his mercenaries were given free rein to begin raiding Punic-aligned territories. Yet these efforts would not last much longer than a year, when news came of affairs in Africa. Plutarch reports that the Carthaginians had been so furious with Mago's withdrawal that they impaled his body, and were preparing for a new invasion to put down the plucky Corinthian upstart.
Holy crap. Yeah, I had heard, yeah, Carthaginian generals, a punishment for failure was being crucified, so... Eesh.
In 339 BC, they descended upon Sicily. Here is how Plutarch paints the picture. Quote, "The Carthaginians put in at Lilybæum with an army of 70,000 men, 200 triremes, and 1,000 transports carrying engines of war, 4-horse chariots, grain in abundance, and other requisite equipment. Their purpose was not to carry on the war by piecemeal anymore, but at one time to drive the invading Greeks out of all Sicily." While numbers here are difficult to accept at face...
Dang, they're going all in for it. Holy crap. Timoleon, I wonder how he's gonna do, like...
value, it was certainly a mighty force. Its grandeur is reinforced by the idea that among them marched the Carthaginian Sacred Band, an elite body of citizen soldiers we've covered in another episode if you want to learn more.
Okay, different group. For a second there, I was like, did they hire the Thebans? Like, why the Thebans fighting for the Carthaginians? I was a bit, like, weirded out, but now I think about it, I don't think the Sacred Band of... I forgot, like, I know they were mainly the main force before Philip, and I think we're a few years removed before, obviously, the Macedonian, you know, hegemony, so... Still though, for a second there I thought it was the Thebans. I was a bit confused, like, wait, what? But, alright.
Timoleon, by contrast, led a comparatively tiny army of levies and mercenaries. Estimates of its size vary, but he probably had around 10,000 men. While exact troop counts claimed by ancient authors are dubious, the picture that they paint is clear. Timoleon was horribly outnumbered. And yet, despite this, he still rose to challenge them. For 8 days, his army marched across the island towards the concentrating Punic force. Along the way, we are told that his army was so terrified that many of them deserted. And yet Timoleon pressed on. It was early summer when Timoleon reached the Kermesis River. The plain ahead was covered in thick mists. As the Greeks crested a hill to observe the surroundings, their vision was veiled, but they could hear the noise of a vast host on the move. Suddenly, this fog parted, and the truth of what lay ahead was revealed. Here is how Plutarch puts it. Quote, "The Kermesis came into view, and the enemy were seen crossing it. In their van, 4-horse chariots formidably arrayed for battle, and behind these, 10,000 men-at-arms with white shields. These the Syracusans conjectured to be the Carthaginians, from the splendor of their armor and the slowness and good order of their march. After these, the other nations streamed on, and were making the crossing in tumultuous confusion. Then Timoleon ordered Demaritus to take the horsemen and fall upon the Carthaginians, and throw their ranks into confusion before their array was yet formed. Then he himself descending into the plain, assigned the wings to the other Sicilian Greeks, uniting a few of his mercenaries with each wing, while he took the Syracusans and the best fighters among his mercenaries under his own command in the center. Then he waited a little while, watching what his horsemen would do, and when he saw that they were unable to come to close quarters with the Carthaginians on account of the chariots which coursed up and down in front of their lines, but were forced to wheel about continually that their ranks might not be broken, and to make their charges in quick succession after facing about again, he took up his shield and shouted to his infantrymen to follow and be of good courage, and his voice seemed stronger than usual and more than human, whether it was from emotion that he made it so loud, in view of the struggle and the enthusiasm which it inspired, or whether, as most felt at the time, some deity joined in his utterance. And with that, the Greek vanguard locked shields and fell upon the Carthaginians with the sound of trumpets, while the cavalry struck them from the flanks. The attack took the Carthaginian army completely off guard.
I have to say, this is a pretty interesting move. I think he has struck in a great time as the army is crossing the river, not fully formed, not fully utilized. To attack now is just great. You know, we've seen this many times, like I think in the War of the Fifth Coalition. That's how Napoleon lost to Archduke Charles, because he didn't get his full army across and was attacked during the crossing, it seems. Or, you know, like he attacked a portion while the other portion was separated by you know, a body of water. I think that he struck at such a great time, and not allowing the Carthaginians to take the initiative and have their full fighting force ready. You know, like, kind of divide and conquer-esque, you know what I mean? Not esque, it just is divide and conquer, but, yeah, overall, like, if there's a time to strike, I think he struck at a really good time.
In addition to the shock of the surprise, their bodies were robbed of energy and mobility by the frigid waters. To make matters worse, a storm of freezing rain joined the assault against their front, blinding the army as it struggled to mount a defense. The result was a slaughter. Here is how Plutarch heralds their doom. Quote, "Finally the storm still assailing them, and the Greeks having overthrown their first rank of 400 men, the main body was put to flight. Many were overtaken in the plain and cut to pieces, and many the river dashed upon and carried away to destruction as they encountered those who were still trying to cross. But most of them the light-armed Greeks ran upon and dispatched as they were making for the hills." Though the sacred band fought valiantly and is said to have stood to the last man, they could not salvage the situation as the army around them disintegrated. All told, some 10,000 Carthaginians were killed and another 15,000 captured. It was a loss of monumental proportions. Under normal circumstances, Carthage could stomach this level of attrition when it came to allied soldiers. But here, the loss of some 2,500 citizen lives was said to be so shocking to Carthage that they resolved to never use citizens again in battle.
That explains a lot later, but holy crap, dude. That is amazing. The Greeks, man, like, completely struck. That goes to show the importance of timing, especially in catching an enemy unawares. Like, their attack right here completely negated the Carthaginian numerical superiority, caught them off guard. They didn't fully utilize everything and completely just dissipated a grander army. Like, Timoleon, man, he just showed up out of nowhere, the complete underdog in the situation, and just basically overcame all the odds. Wow. That's just really... That's just really great on his part, man.
In the aftermath, the Greeks apparently took so many spoils that it took them several days to erect a victory trophy on the site. Their bloated army then returned to Syracuse to gather forces and make renewed war upon the tyrants of the east. Carthage, meanwhile, was still reeling from the disaster, but managed to dispatch an admiral by the name of Gisco to render them aid. His troops helped score a series of minor victories against Timoleon. However, the Corinthian would soon manage to defeat Hycetius in the Battle of the Demurius River and Mamercus in the Battle of the Abolus River. Unfortunately, neither of these are recorded in high detail. What little we do know mentions how the Carthaginians again suffered heavy casualties in the battles. These setbacks prompted them to cut their losses. In 339 BC, a peace treaty was signed that would conclude this Sixth Punic Sicilian War. The terms specified that Carthage was to remain west of the Halsius River, to cut all alliances to the east, and to restore the family and property to anyone who wished to move to Syracuse. It seemed now that the ghost of Dionysius must have smiled upon this turn of fates. And yet, the tyrant would be next to suffer from Timoleon's success. To start, the Corinthian was hailed as a brave and brilliant military leader who had managed to win an incredible victory in the face of overwhelming odds over...
I know, like, he really is. Like I said, he showed up as the underdog, with Corinth not wanting to, like, help, and then he just took it upon himself. Completely wrecked Carthage on every turn. This dude's like a genius, and, like, out here restoring democracy. Like, man, like, Timoleon's actually incredibly impressive. I did not expect this dude to show up out of nowhere and just completely, like dominate as he is. But he... oh crap, my microphone almost fell. But he did, you know? And, I just have to say, like, man, Carthage just took a lot of L's right there. Oh man, oh Carthage.
Shadowing the successes of Dionysius. What's more though, is that he did not use this power to rule as a despot. Instead, he remained true to his word, committing himself fully to the democratization of Syracuse by drafting a new constitution, which would last for many generations.
Wow.
Under his supervision, the Greeks of Sicily now enjoyed a well-earned period of renewed peace and prosperity. Here...
dang, dude. This dude rocks, what the heck? This dude rocks. My allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy! But, yeah, again, just... I'm impressed. I did not expect all this, but... wow.
Is how Plutarch writes of these matters. Quote, "In this manner, then, did Timoleon extirpate the tyrannies and put a stop to their wars. He found the whole island reduced to a savage state by its troubles and hated by its inhabitants. But he made it so civilized and so desirable in the eyes of all men that others came by sea to dwell in the places from which their own citizens used to run away before. To these settlers, Timoleon not only afforded safety and calm after so long a storm of war, but also supplied their further needs and zealously assisted them, so that he was revered by them as a founder.
Wow.
All the other inhabitants also cherished like feelings towards him, and no conclusion of war, no institution of laws, no settlement of victory, no arrangement of civil polity seemed satisfactory unless he gave the finishing touches to it, like a master builder adding to a work that is drawing to completion some grace which pleases gods and men. We are told that rather than return to Greece to pursue greater honors, Timoleon instead remained in Sicily. Here he was lavished with praise by the Syracusans, but remained of humble character, claiming that the gods and fortune were to thank for his successes. Even when he began to lose his vision, the people still turned to him for guidance. When important matters were being discussed, a blind Timoleon would be led into the assembly to render his counsel. And while he could no longer lead them in war, the Syracusans vowed to only employ Corinthian generals for such matters. When he finally passed, a grand funeral would be arranged. Several days were taken to prepare the event and to allow the vast numbers of mourners to attend. When the day came, thousands partook in the procession which bore his body to the pyre. When it was lit, Plutarch states, quote, "Demetrius, who had the loudest voice of any herald of the time, read from manuscript the following decree. By the people of Syracuse, Timoleon, son of Timodemus from Corinth, is here buried at a public cost of 200 minas, and is honored for all time with annual contests, musical, equestrian, and gymnastic, because he overthrew the tyrants, subdued the barbarians, repopulated the largest of the devastated cities, and then restored their laws to the Greeks of Sicily."
He did so much. Dude is such a giga-chad. Shows up, restores democracy, beats Carthage, is great in everything, everyone loves him, dies, doesn't elaborate any further, doesn't really need to, he already did everything he needed to do, but... dude, what a giga-chad. I'm giving him the MVP of this entire series. I bestow upon you, Timoleon, the MVP award for this entire series, because you're just the greatest guy ever of this time. Wow. And well-deserved, too. Like, come on, that was amazing.
Furthermore, They buried his ashes in the marketplace, and afterwards, when they had surrounded it with porticos and built palestras in it, they set it apart as a gymnasium for their young men, and named it the Timoleontum. And they themselves, using the civil polity and the laws which he had ordained, enjoyed a long course of unbroken prosperity and happiness. Such praise was likely genuine to some degree, and yet we must also understand that the favorable treatment of Timoleon by historians came in the context of other important global events. While this Corinthian general was championing the Greek cause in Sicily against the Carthaginians, back at home, his fellow countrymen were struggling. The very same year after Timoleon's victory at the river Croesus, Philip II of Macedon would cement his own victory over the Greeks at the decisive battle.
That's what I was saying. It happened so close. I was talking about, like, the Sacred Band of Thebes were the top dog until the rise of Philip and Macedon. So wow, this was happening at the exact same time. Dang. We're like right next to Alexander's conquest.
Chaeronea. Syracuse now stood as one of the last great symbols of Greek independence. Those of the mainland would be yoked to the aspirations of Philip and his son Alexander for a grand eastern campaign. Thus, for now, their attention would be distracted, and Sicily once again left isolated. With Timoleon's passing, this left them vulnerable.
So that's the end of the 6th war. Tomorrow, we're gonna wrap this up with the 7th. So I'll see you guys, tomorrow, when we wrap this all up.